you let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
Hey everybody, it's great to have you on. It's great to have you here. It's 7:01 on the East Coast, 7:01 p.m. that is, on October 16th, 2025. It's a Thursday evening and we're everywhere we can be at the moment, except even Spotify. Even though I don't have an account that I can access, there's many of you out there who are still listening to the nightly show, the morning after, on Spotify. But I have been kicked off. It's very strange. It's a zombie I have a zombie presence on Spotify. I still cannot get into contact with anybody over there that can help me restore the account and, reset everything because all the copyright issues were changed. So strange. It's a strange platform. First of all, there's what I'm dealing with personally. But even before then, I was like, Spotify is strange. We mastered the ability to shuffle music years ago. Like, we're talking like 20 years of shuffling music, and Spotify is just unable to shuffle anything. You can have a 500-track playlist that you built yourself, and I have one of those, and you will hear the same damn 15 songs over and over again. Inability to shuffle music. Anyway, I just completely went off on a tangent. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you tonight, whether you're watching on YouTube or Twitch or Rumble, the Quite Frankly Rumble, or our wonderful friends at Badlands are with us tonight. Thank you so much. D Live, Twitter, and who the hell knows? Oh, right. That's right. QuiteFrankly.tv, Pilled.net. That's home headquarters for Quite Frankly. And yeah, we will be there for after hours tonight. On the flip side, had some really interesting things to do. Last night was a trip. Tonight will be a trip as well. Who do we have on the show tonight? Before I get into that, I want to just let you know that, well, first of all, Ace Frehley is dead at 74 years old, which is just awful. Just awful. Ace Frehley was a good one, man. And so I'm sure that we'll be talking about that at some point, either on the Playhouse or with Sherry and Dave when they come by, because we've already roasted quite a few Kiss music videos over the last couple of Saturday specials, and of course it was done all out of love. And I know that King is a very big Kiss fan, and Ace Frehley is very close to King's heart as well. So I'm sure that this is going to bum him out a little bit as well there too. So rest in peace, Ace Frehley. That's number one. Number two, we have the stories on John Bolton getting indicted for mishandling of classified information, especially leaking classified information. And we also have Nancy Pelosi has a little bit of an issue. She had a little bit of a meltdown about January 6th and people asking her why she didn't send in the National Guard and this and that. She had a meltdown, and then now people are coming at her with the receipts. I don't think we're going to have time for that right now, but we will in the second half of the show after our guest departs. And our guest, my friends, is one Caleb Gilbert. Now, there's been a lot out there in the news over the last, couple of years. Last couple of years about security at one place or another, and the need to keep people secure, public figures, cultural figures, especially as our society becomes a lot more polarized and a lot more infected by this this crazy soul sickness that we have, it becomes a lot more apparent that security for people of all types of professions, with careers big and small, they need to consider security a lot more. I mean, we talk about that whenever we have our buddies from Patriot Protect come on. I think that James and Skip are actually going to be joining the show again in a couple of weeks or something to talk about cybersecurity news, things that really keep everyday people a little bit more secure in their standing in the world, in a place where there is just so much more scamming. There's so much more targeted attacks. I don't know. It's nuts. But then, of course, you have a lot more high-profile events, assassination attempts, successful assassinations. It's all very disturbing stuff, especially when you consider how these the more high-profile events that we've dealt with in the last couple of years have transpired, and the unthinkable lanes of opportunity that have been opening up for people, alleged or otherwise, to go out there and try to take a person's life, to alter the course of either the trajectory of a nation, or to be able to exact personal revenge. If you were going to talk about the healthcare CEO that was gunned down in New York City last year as well, there's just so much to consider. And for this conversation, we are bringing on a guest who was highly recommended to me by a good friend of the show. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Caleb Gilbert is his name. He's the founder and president of White Glove Protection Group and a global subject matter expert in executive protection with over 25 years of experience across 51 countries. He moved to Hollywood with just $43 and a dream to protect the world's most elite. Oh, that's a modern day Ellis Island story, if you ask me. Caleb, I have there's a story in my family about my great grandfather, how he came over with nothing but a sack of figs, and that's how we started laying down roots over here. Anyway, from building teams for Fortune 200 companies and UHNW families to safeguarding A-list celebrities, Caleb's career reflects exceptional success built on grit, precision, and heart. Well, we have him here tonight. I just can't wait to talk to him and meet him. It's great to have you on the show tonight, Caleb.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, well, you came highly recommended, and you know what? There's no better time to talk to somebody in your line of work than right now, with everything that's happening to, everybody feels like they need a little bit more security these days. And the more in the public eye you are, the more it seems that you can't avoid having that conversation. So I've got a lot of questions to ask you, and I maybe you've heard a lot of them, but who the hell knows? So how did you get into this event security? I just want to know about this. Where did that desire come from?
Well, I was actually at a very young age, came across some guys. At the time, I had wanted to become a Navy SEAL. And so I was training physically and trying to prepare, doing some volunteer search and rescue operations. And we were training for underwater search and recovery operations. And we ran into some guys in a park that were they were executive protection agents. And so a big part of what they do is obviously physical fitness. A big part of what we did was physical fitness. And they started talking to me about this thing called executive protection. I was 16 years old, and I was very committed to becoming a SEAL. But I'll tell you what, that day shook me. I became inspired. Some might say obsessed, and that was in the 90s. And here we are now, and it's been quite the progression.
Well, I for a little while I was kind of obsessed with it too. I got to be honest. And it's the first time I've ever spoken about this on the show. And when I say a little while, I mean a very little while. And I was only about 8 years old, because around 1993 is when that Clint Eastwood movie In the Line of Fire came out. You remember that?
It.
Okay.
Of course.
Dude, I've seen that movie so many times as a kid because back then, when a movie came out on pay-per-view, they would play it nonstop for like 2 weeks
You're right.
before another film came into the mix. So I mean, I watched The Fugitive like 50 times, but still, I remember Eastwood in this movie. He's a Secret Service agent who's on duty the day that JFK was killed, and now he wants to prevent another assassination plot. And I better watch that again. It's been a very, very long time, but
well worth the time.
Hell yeah. Okay, so my question: so were you in the military? You said you wanted to become a SEAL, but you never actually enlisted.
I did not. I met with the recruiters and they, at the time they put these blocks on the table that said, we could teach you, perseverance, motivation, dedication. And at the time I grew up in a very simple household in Spokane, Washington. I just wanted a hiring bonus. I was like, give me $500, give me something. If I'm going to sign 6 years of my life away, give me a little cheddar. But, keep in mind at the time, I quit school when I was 13. I had no foundation. I had nothing to offer the world as far as formally. And so there wasn't a lot of incentive for the military to even want me. And so as that transition happened, I literally pivoted from pursuing becoming a SEAL and threw everything into pursuing executive protection. Sold everything I had. I started working a landscaping business, did my little entrepreneurial spirit when I was 11, started that with my brother, pushed through, finally sold that to be able to pay for executive protection school. Keep in mind, my dad for most of my childhood made $5 an hour, did an amazing job of taking care of us. There just wasn't extra money in the house. And so I had to produce it myself. Did that, paid for EP school, went to Executive Security International, which was in Aspen, Colorado at the time. Did executive protection training, learned how to do motorcades, all the basics of executive protection. They had stalkers that would follow us around, take pictures of us as we were driving around with the clients, slip it under our hotel room doors at night saying, hey, we were watching you. All the things that they could do to try to prepare each of us for a lifetime in executive protection.
Wow. Okay. See, that was the next thing I wanted to ask you about was skills. And obviously I have to imagine that this is something that people can choose to go into more private work and they don't need military service. But regardless of whether you had any time serving in the military or not, I have to imagine skills, certain types of disciplines or prerequisite experience or training that to be able to get into this line of work, just because you're talking about specialized military type organization to be able to seal up all types of gaps that would be able to that danger would be able to slip through for whatever your objective is, or the person, the VIP that you're hired to protect. I mean, that's a lot of coordination. Talk a little bit about the skill sets, the discipline that you're building up in this school that you were at.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was the initial investment. That was about $10,000 that I spent for those first 30 days. And those skills, everything from counter surveillance to motorcade operations. We did weapons proficiency training, how to conceal a weapon, hand-to-hand combat, how to take and manipulate a situation to where you can cover and evacuate your principal if there is an attack on your principal. We learned how to run rope lines and, ingress into a venue, ingress, egress, all of those things, the considerations. But really, that training, basically all it can do in that 30 days of intense training is give you a general familiarization. I have since spent the last 25 years focusing on honing the specific skills, but that has been a progression because in the executive protection world, we have all sorts of different kinds of details. We have low risk details, high risk details, low profile details, high profile details. Every single one of those requires a different skill set to be able to execute the appropriate level of skills training, soft skills, hard skills that we need to be able to safeguard the people that we're entrusted with. And so I've actually, over the progression of my career, spent over $467,000 on security specific training to be sure that as my career progressed, my training was in line with the expectations and needs of the individuals that I was able to protect.
I'd love to know a little bit more about how you customize a detail for a person. You're just talking about low profile, high profile, and a few other categories there too, which tells me that obviously you're not going to give anybody that walks through the door the treatment that you would give a presidential candidate. You would customize, you would assess what the hell they would need and to what degree. I'd love to know a little bit more about that. If you can give us some examples too about how you would take somebody, I don't know, like me or a random person from the audience, if they're feeling a certain way about where they're going on vacation. I don't know, maybe a vacation, a business trip. They have to go do a big deal that might have some eyes on it. Tell us a little bit about this.
Absolutely. Well, in the past, it has been, much like the Wild Wild West, where there was different levels of attention given depending on budget, depending on preferences, things like that. Thankfully, one of the organizations that I've had the privilege of volunteering with, the ASIS International, it's the world's largest security organization. And one thing that we just released was the Executive Protection Standard. And what that's done is it's standardized the expectations, because every single protectee needs a different level of protection. You look at the president's protection detail. At any given time, they have an extremely high number of people protecting the president, doing their own minutely focused areas of protection, and together they form the protective circles around the president. Oftentimes, when you're talking about ultra high net worth individuals, corporate CEOs, celebrities, you'll have a limited number of people, one, maybe two people for most celebrities, depending on the size of the detail. And that all should be risk-based. And that's a big thing. What we do is take and use our protective intelligence assets to be able to identify what are the risks to this individual. What risks can we manage? What risks do we need to accept? And what risks do we need to mitigate? And that's a fancy way of saying, how much force do we need to bring to the table, right? Is it okay for us to just assign a driver to our CEO and let that driver, make sure that they have frictionless logistics as they're driving around their workday? Or is there an increased threat posture? Is there an active assailant that's looking to try to do harm? And then if there's a situation like that, then we would get super granular and say, okay, what is the nature of the threat? What does the bad person want to do to the person that we're protecting? And how can we best mitigate those risks? I've had the pleasure of starting 9 extremely large details over the course of the last 15 years. And on those details, no two plans were the same because we customized it for the protectee. One of the details that I had the privilege of leading, the client had a full team. We had everybody from former FBI, Secret Service, SEALs. We had CAG. We had the full contingent of tier 1 operators. And the client looked around and they said, Caleb, I like the people on this team, but they just draw too much attention. And so what we did was we took and we created a new style of protection, called it covert protection, to where we took and we mitigated the state-sponsored level risks that they were facing, but we did so completely covert. So they would walk into the mall, they would walk into a movie, they would walk in to whatever location they were going to. They had a full protection team all around them, but people didn't know that there was a protection team. They were able to live their life without feeling like they had knuckle draggers accompanying them at all times. And that's really the level that we take, and we customize the protection team to fit their needs, but also mitigate their risks.
Yeah, I'm just trying to empathize with being in that situation where it's one thing to walk around and have a bunch of people with earpieces and black mirrored sunglasses on. It's another thing to just be out there and know that you're being swarmed by people who are there to protect you for one reason or another. And I guess that's one of those things where you have to just assess the level of security a person needs, a band, a group of people, whatever the hell it is. If there is a known stalker threat that's out there, you're probably called in if somebody has a stalker and they have not been dealt with yet or located, things like that.
Absolutely. And we use a variety of things. We use technology to augment the physical protection that we provide. When you're talking about large venues, there's so many variables because not only do you have the threats that are facing your protectee, let's say it's the talent going into a 60,000 person stadium, but you have the people that are targeting the stadium. So we have to coordinate with law enforcement, federal law enforcement, local venue security, local law enforcement. Make sure that not only do we have seamless ingress and egress from the venue, we don't get hemmed up with the crowds, but also we're able to make sure that if there's a risk that's introduced into that environment that's not associated with us but could impact us, that not only do we have clarity of communication between the different protective efforts that are going into that venue, but we have the ability to pivot in a direction that can safeguard our client and prioritize their needs.
Yeah. Well, when you take on a client and you're working a specific event, like you're just talking about a stadium, and we can go arena, we can go amphitheater, inside, outside. I want to know about this stuff. What are you always taking note of, like when you go to do advanced scouting of a location? Because I have to imagine if they call you up, they say, Caleb, we're going, we don't need any ongoing security, but we do want to be able to use you to make sure that this particular event that we're going to do, a rally or something like that, is locked down. What are you doing when you go? What are you looking for as far as the layout of not only the geography, but also building structures, everything else? Like what's your checklist?
Yeah. I mean, it's an extensive checklist. We have digital versions, we have physical versions, but mentally, when you're walking into a venue, obviously, you know what your primary, secondary, and tertiary route of entry and exit is going to be. Contingencies are something that are very standard. We're not going to walk into a venue and say, I think we're going to go this way. We're going to say, this is our plan. We're going to go this direction. If something happens, everybody on the team knows we're going to pivot. We're going to go to that secondary location. If anything's wrong with that secondary location, you know what the next plan is. And that process continues because we know that the only thing we know for sure is everything we know is going to change. And so for us to be able to safeguard, maintain frictionless logistics for each principal, we have to be, I call it 3 steps ahead. What are they doing now? What are they doing next? And what do we anticipate they're going to do after that? Because if we're thinking ahead, then we're also 1 step ahead when it comes to looking for the suspicious individual, looking for the anomalies in the crowd, looking for any changes in the environment that might impact our ability to safeguard them. You look at everything from a stampeding crowd in the VIP section of a club to, large venues let out and everybody wants to go in one direction and our vehicles are parked in the other direction. How are you gonna navigate that? Obviously, we put an intense amount of planning in to make sure that those variables don't impact us. But at the end of the day, every single one of those details has to be part of the checklist. We have to go through it systematically and say, all right, this is what we're going to do. If we can't meet our objectives, if we can't ensure their safety, then we simply have to cancel the trip. And that quite often does happen.
Wow. I guess the biggest factor that it's always going to change on you is going to be the human factor. So so before we get into that, because I want to talk about things like suspicious behavior or things that you just see, you spot when you're in it. But prior to doors opening, prior to people coming in, I'm wondering about what you're looking at as far as lines of sight, as far as where you're going to put spotters, where you're going to put sharpshooters, where you're going, like all those types of things. What are the check marks that are pretty standard before you add in the greatest variable of them all, 1,000 human beings and all their egos and all their motivations for being there? So talk about that checklist prior to the the human aspect coming in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of a running joke in the industry, but we always say, everybody in this venue is a tourist. We own this space. When we leave, they can have it back. But until then, we're going to dictate the terms of the environment. And whatever we have to do to achieve that, whether it's, purchasing the rights to do that or making sure the right decision makers in place, that's absolutely what we work to make sure we can do. But to answer your question, when you're going into a venue, let's say you're going to the Super Bowl, and when I'm approaching that with my client, not only does the planning start 6 months ahead, but the planning intensifies over time, depending on the size of the detail, depending who you're with, depending on the access levels. That will dictate the responsibility. Keep in mind, for the large venues, when you're talking about things like counter surveillance, or counter snipers, when you're talking about spotters, when you're talking things like that with a large venue, that's a law enforcement specific activity. Now we use counter snipers in the private sector, but there's no way to legally be able to use counter snipers at every venue we travel to across the world. And so we rely heavily on local law enforcement, federal law enforcement, those who we're collaborating with to be able to make sure that we're able to keep our protectees safe. But what does stand out, regardless of the venue, regardless of who else is there protecting anyone else, what does stand out to us is the baseline of the environment. And that's really what we take and we assess is the behavior that's being exhibited in this environment normal for this environment? It's going to be different if you're at a concert versus if you're at a memorial, right? But that behavior, you find consistency from everybody's behavior throughout that venue. If you're at the Super Bowl, everybody's amped up. There's going to be a different level of emotions, but there's still consistencies that we can look for. And that, from behavioral analysis standpoint, is what we rely on to be able to take and look for the anomalies, look for any changes in that behavior. When you're looking for somebody that could potentially be looking to try to gain high ground or try to gain a position that they could jump on the stage and access your talent, somebody that's trying to maneuver around the security infrastructure in place. All of those things are anomalies in the environment. And if our agents are properly trained, properly equipped with the proper amount of agents for the size of the venue, then they're able to focus on those anomalies and safeguard the people we've been entrusted with.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, how you identify nefarious people, because you go to a concert and, of course, there's it's not one of those things that always ever leaves your mind. When you see an opening, you see a hallway, you see a small gate that could be jumped. Maybe you can go and meet the band or something like that, a groupie or whatever the hell it is. I just wonder about more of those anomalous showings of behavior that you pick up on, especially when you're in a large venue too, because if you're a small space, you see a lot of people having a good lighthearted time. You might be drawn to the person who looks a little bit more glum, a little bit more shifty-eyed, and things like that, who's a little bit more of a loner, hands in its pockets, not talking to anybody. You get drawn to things like that. But when you're in a place where there's, I don't know, 3,000 to 7,000 people or more, how do you play that game of Where's Waldo? What are you looking for?
There's different levels of competence on behavioral analysis. There's 6 months of training that I went through to be able to understand the idiosyncrasies of behavioral analysis that is extremely intense. What I've done is I've tried to simplify it so that average people at home can understand it. But for agents on the ground, for agents in the field, they're looking exactly what I explained. In the simplest of terms, they're looking for what that baseline is. What is normal? Who is acting like Waldo versus the rest of the crowd? Because we're not saying that there's anything nefarious about Waldo. We don't have to identify that Waldo has bad intentions to be able to identify that Waldo is an anomaly in the crowd. We just have to identify where the anomalies are. The human brain can only focus on so many different things at once. So, for instance, if you're in a football stadium and you're trying to identify who within proximity to do harm to my protectee could potentially do something bad, we have to recognize what are the components that are needed for a bad actor to do something bad, and then what can we do to disrupt it? It's much like a firefighter fighting the firefighter triangle, right? You remove one of the elements needed, and then you can eliminate that fire. For the protection world, we know that bad people need to have the means to commit whatever act it is that they're looking to set out. They need to have proximity. They need to be close enough to whatever or whomever it is that they want to do harm. And then they have to have the intent. And when you fuse the three of those components together, means proximity and intent, that's when you have bad people doing bad things. The good news is if you interrupt the bad actor's ability to have proximity, they can't commit a bad act, right? Mm-hmm. If you interrupt their means of being able to do it, you can interrupt that and you can disrupt that flow. And so what we look for is anybody that is trying to gain the proximity, be in a position to where they would be able to do harm. And then does anybody look like they have any sort of intent? You can't always see intent, but the human body has telltale signs that their actions are out of line with the expectations of the environment, right? I think of my son. When he's getting ready to bop his sister on the head, that little guy isn't walking up to her and saying, I'm going to bop you on the head, but there sure are telltale signs that he's getting ready to rear and something bad's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
That's a child's response to violence, if you will. But bad people do the same thing. We just need to know how to look for the things that they're going to do that are the behavioral tics that allow us to see what they're doing.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, those ticks are something else. Everybody's got them. So I just curious as to the ones that you see that are really often prevalent, telltale, and yeah. So examples all throughout the show. Whenever they come to you, just drop it on us. In the meantime, I have a question more so about the full scope of a bigger operation, or when you think about something that requires let's talk high profile, because just in the last year and a half, we had at least one or two assassination attempts of Donald Trump prior to his reelection. And then we just had the murder of Charlie Kirk in Utah. And there's a lot of questions people have about this from an operational standpoint about where security failed, especially because both venues, both instances, one being a near miss and the other one being a successful hit, they have a lot of very eerie similarities that make people say, how the hell were these most obvious lanes kept open? So I want to talk about that in just a second. But as far as the actual costs for this goes, I want to talk about this real quick. If you have a let's say an open air amphitheater type of place, there's going to be a couple thousand people there, and you need to be able to take vantage points from on top of roofs. You have to do anything that is standard on the ground, entrance ways, whatever. Talk about the full team that you need to be assembled there, and the kind of equipment that is necessary, from weapons to communication. I want to hear, just rattle off everything that would be involved for a venue that size and an event that size, and some serious security concerns, especially if it's like political in nature.
Absolutely. It's incredible to see the amount of resources that actually go into this. And I can't get specific into all the details, but some things I can absolutely share. A lot of our large political venues, you want to have an ambulance on site, that's 10 grand for the day, right? You want to have a SWAT team on site if it's a large enough venue, if there's, protests going on, things like that. Depending on the municipality, depending on where we're at in the world, sometimes the only people that can have weapons on that site are active law enforcement. So you have to go in and well in advance, get a contract with that city to be able to hire off-duty officers so that they can be in an armed capacity. Because a lot of the venues where these events are taking place, even security professionals who have every single license that is accepted or available in the state cannot legally carry weapons in there, right? So then you run the risk of saying, all right, are we going to rely on some of our law enforcement partners, and how can we adjust those? When you're talking about taking a look, let's say at a political venue, when we're looking at that, we're looking at what is the most probable disruption or incident that could happen, right? So when you're looking at the probability, there are things that will most likely happen based on things that you see consistently. People trying to jump the fence, people trying to get up on the stage, people trying to hog the microphone, protesters popping up in the crowd, alternating from different positions in the crowd to withdraw resources, right? We see this a ton in corporate America. We see this a ton in political events, and those drain resources significantly. Because if you take, let's say you have a room with 1,000 people, you have that room surrounded with 15 agents, and you have 6 protesters, you've cut the size of your team down to where you have massive holes. Oftentimes, we see that there are diversionary incidents to where the diversion is a massive distraction and the actual harm is done when the diversion has been deployed. And so we have to allocate our resources based on the most probable incident happening. You look at the history of sniper attacks in the U.S. prior to Butler, Pennsylvania. It's been quite a while since we've seen many attacks. You look at the 60s, the 70s, you saw snipers quite often would engage, very well publicized. There's quite a few from, college campuses to activists, that was very prevalent. But you look at the 80s, the 90s, up until recently, we hadn't seen a ton of snipers. And so that was a massive shift in tactics, but also was a massive shift in the ideology of the individuals who were trying to do harm, because that barrier to violence that is typically seen in so many bad actors, there's typically a barrier. There's a limit that they want to do harm, and then they will back off. That barrier for quite some time prevented them from being a sniper, from doing certain things. We're seeing an escalation in people's ideological motivation to think that it's okay to do harm with people that they don't agree with. After the United Healthcare CEO was shot, there was a large poll that was put out. I forget the exact name of it, but 36% of the individuals who were polled thought it was okay to shoot the person that you don't agree with. Now, in what world, is that something that we've seen as normal? That's new, because I don't know. Before that, I would have never said that 34% of the people in the restaurant that I was sitting in thought it was okay for them to shoot an individual if they didn't agree with them, right? So that was definitely an eye-opener for many in the industry, because that shifted it from a black swan event, like Talib quotes, black swan event, to something that all of a sudden has to be front and center. But it being front and center in our minds creates tons of logistical issues, because the Secret Service only has so many counter sniper teams. They're incredible individuals, and I've had the pleasure working alongside many of them over the years. After they've retired, they've come into the private sector and worked on my teams. And these are incredible individuals who can shoot the hair off of a fly at 1,000 yards, right? But there's only a certain number of people that are trained at that level. Not only that, but the legal ability to be able to take a shot is another conversation that I don't see being taken out there, right? You have to, in defense of yourself or others, you have to be able to clearly illustrate why you took that shot. And that, as far as I'm aware, has never been tested in court.
Well, there's another thing there too about the Secret Service, and it's really fallen. The reputation has really fallen in great disrepair, especially since Butler. And like I was saying before, we started wondering, there's some head scratching things as to what's going on. When I asked you the question, when you show up at a place and you know that you're at the site of a future rally or something like that, what are you taking note of geographically or structurally with things that are, is there a water tower in sight? Is there, whatever the hell it was? Well, with Charlie Kirk and with Donald Trump, the only roofs that had a clear line of sight at their respective rallies was about 200 yards away and were completely unmanned. And the Secret Service shocked a lot of people in July of last year when I think it was Kimberly Cheadle said that there was a sloped roof that prevented agents from being positioned in a place to be able to keep a line of sight on the only standing structure that had a line of sight on the president when he was going to be speaking that day, which is another one of those reasons that everybody was just like, why there has to be an ulterior motive as to why these obvious windows of opportunity were left open, because it's so ridiculous. If you're, I mean, I don't even have the training you have, Caleb. And if I was for some reason tasked with showing up at Butler in the days leading up to Donald Trump having a speech there, even in my unknowing state would say, all right, well, can we please just get somebody on that one roof over there? It really makes a lot of people wonder. So I have to imagine if you were doing the security at Butler or in Utah, I have to imagine that both Trump's ear would be completely intact, though it is healed marvelously, and Charlie Kirk would be alive, because both these incidents will really they're mind-boggling as far as how those most obvious windows were left open.
Well, I don't consider myself in a place to be able to critique the Secret Service.
You should.
Well, that's my personal take. But what I will say is there are so many lessons that we've been able to glean from Butler. We will be able to glean from Charlie Kirk, from the United Healthcare incident. Those incidents have fundamentally transformed our ability to train the agents of tomorrow to be able to better mitigate risks. And I think that there's plenty of blame to go around with all those organizations. We know some of the highlights: lack of communication. We know some of the people that were there weren't completely part of the protective team prior to that week. Those lessons, and there's a whole list of lessons that we could dig into, but those lessons are lessons that will save lives later on. And I can sit here and I can name 1,000 things that we could have done differently. But I firmly believe that as things happen, I'm going to take the lessons that I've learned from that. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to make this world a better place to be a protectee in, because I know that my teams are better today than they were before Butler. I know my teams are better equipped today than they were before the United Healthcare incident. I know that the incident with Charlie Kirk, we still have so much to learn from each of those incidents. And as the facts come out, as we're able to separate the facts from the fiction, I firmly believe that there will be a plethora of lessons that will actually be able to save lives.
I guess the reason why with Butler in particular, I make those comments is because when you say there are things that have made us better since Butler, I have to imagine what are some of those things aside from the obvious, like don't leave the only roof with a line of sight on the target open for somebody to hang out up there, and just take shots like it's a shooting gallery. Aside from the obvious, what else did you learn about that day that really needs to be fine-tuned going forward? Because as you said before, as we're in agreement, we're living in a completely different chapter in American history that we haven't. I mean, we've been in this chapter before where people's lives are in danger because there is an obvious shift in the culture. But we're there again, and that should dictate our mentality going forward. So what did you learn?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, communications, first and foremost, was one of the first facts that we learned, that there was a lack of communication between local law enforcement, between local SRT, between local counter snipers and the Secret Service counter sniper team, right? They had the spotters, but you look at the size of that crowd. You look at the typical Secret Service circumference of each sniper, and there's a designated distance for each sniper to be able to contain in each of their venues, right? We know from things that have been publicly disclosed that was far less coverage than should have been, bar none, right? They didn't have air assets. They didn't have technology that could have helped them be able to get ahead of it. But at the end of the day, the biggest failure that's been publicly disclosed that I'm aware of is the lack of communication between the identification of a threat and removing the protectee or whatever their target is from the line of sight from that. We can sit here and say, I would have covered this building, I would have covered that building. And, I could name 100 sites that I've been to, and I could say that about 100 sites, but it's when you're in real time, really focusing on each of those sites and taking the time to meticulously do your full advanced plan. We do advanced plans, but we also do hostile vulnerability assessments to identify if there's a hostile, where would they most likely come from? Put ourselves in the eye of the adversary and just be proactive about getting ahead of the threat curve rather than responding after the threat has already presented itself.
Yeah. So I guess that would be a good place to ask you about Brian Thompson of United Healthcare in particular, because I don't know if there was any kind of intel out there or any kind of threat that was known to him. Didn't seem like he felt like he was in danger when he was taken out right there in front of like the New York Hilton in Midtown last December. But what did you said you learned about that? What do you learn about stuff like this? Because to most of us, here is a guy who got it that didn't expect he was going to, or else he probably wouldn't have been out and exposed like that. So is it just that every CEO of a major corporation like this needs to go out with a bodyguard, or what is because that can't be feasible for everybody. So what did you learn about this that you think is the biggest takeaway?
Well, one thing to remember about the Brian Thompson murder is that he wasn't the CEO of United Healthcare. He was a sub-CEO of United Healthcare Group. And so you talk about major corporations that you have the main CEO, but you have 10, 12, 15 sub-CEOs of companies they acquire. They're still a big target, but oftentimes they don't get the same level of attention as a CEO. Now, this is a trend that I've seen drastically shift since that happened. But when you look at specifically at that situation, I've been to that hotel. I've taken clients in and out of there. And when you look at a cold New York morning, when you're rolling in and rolling out with a client, oftentimes when there's an opportunity for an error when it comes to humans, that can also be in the intersection of discomfort and human apathy. I'm not saying that there was either in that case, because he clearly didn't have an agent with him at the time, and it hasn't been publicly disclosed, whether or not there was somebody assigned to that. But we do know that it's been publicly disclosed that there were threats to him in the months previous, both at home and on the road. We do know that there was a considerable effort put in place, for that event, and we know that obviously it didn't go right. So given those things, what the biggest takeaway from that has been for the corporate America in general is there is a need to run a risk-based program that is appropriate for the needs of the protectee. And by that, I mean, it costs a lot of money to have somebody on body with a client. But when you're going to a high-profile event, public-facing event, when you're going to an event where the opportunity is higher for somebody to correlate the company with the individual and want to do harm to either, then that is an opportunity for the company to mitigate a higher level of risk, even if they don't want to spend the resources to have somebody on that individual all the time. That's an opportunity to really take and assess the risk and identify if having somebody on body to protect that individual would be something that would be productive.
And I'm sorry.
The other thing to remember for this is you look at the direction he was traveling. Let's say that there was an agent walking with him. If it was a single agent, would that agent have been able to see that individual approaching from the trajectory he followed, right? And, we've obviously gone through and microanalyzed the movements of it and all that, but that emphasizes the importance for agents to focus not only on behavior of the individuals around them, but to be able to have a complete understanding for what is normal for that environment. You look at his behavior versus the behavior even of the other individuals that were on the camera that were filmed there, and his behavior was out of line with that. Obviously, before he shot, it was what I'm talking about, because obviously after that it was. But his pre-attack indicators when he moved into the scene on the video were out of line with the rest of the people in the area. That's what we need to focus on. That's what protectors want to look for to be able to get ahead of the threat curve, be able to mitigate the risk, mitigate the attack, and thwart it.
Yeah. Have you been contacted by more otherwise unknown CEOs after the insurance executive was assassinated?
I'll tell you what, in the first week after that happened, I had more actual protectees contact me personally than I had ever had in my entire career. That shook people. Between that and when they released the poll that said 36% of people think it's okay to shoot somebody they disagree with. Those were the two major events that were catalysts for so many people just being scared. And then the New York Tower incident where the gunman entered the tower and shot the individuals, a couple months ago.
I remember that.
That scared people because people knew those people.
I remember it now that you bring it up. Otherwise, I'd forgotten it. It's been such a crazy. I mean, that almost feels like last year. And what was that? Just in the spring, late spring, early summer?
Summer. Yeah, no, that was summer. And the thing is bad things have always happened, right? There's always been, bad things happening around the world. The difference between now and in years past is the cadence of tragic events has increased so much, right? We had Butler. We had that cadence that has just continued. Normally something bad happens. Let's say the YouTube shooter of 2018, where the female walked in, shot up YouTube headquarters. That scared the living daylights out of Silicon Valley because that was the first time that we in Silicon Valley had experienced somebody coming in at scale, doing mass shootings and intended to do harm to that scale. It was a knee-jerk reaction after that, and tons of people wanted protection. Tons of people wanted police. Tons of people wanted, guns everywhere. After that, then there was the apathy that kicked in when nothing happened for an extended period of time, and then they started to scale back on security operations, right? The difference between an incident like that and the incidents that we've seen for the last 12 to 15 months is absolutely the cadence has kept the risks facing executives and at-risk persons front and center. I put it like this. Before Butler, before Charlie Kirk, before United Healthcare CEO, executives could see that there were risks out there. They saw that they were out there, but it wasn't in focus. It was just a blurry thing in the background. After those incidents have happened, it's given the executives a pair of security-minded glasses that all of a sudden it brings everything into focus. And they can see how the correlation from that United Healthcare CEO correlates to them. They can see how that BlackRock employee was at an event that they were at a couple months ago. They can see how every NFL stadium is now afraid because if somebody's trying to target with a weapon, and as an active killer, trying to target that stadium, all of a sudden the level of fear becomes personal. And those security-minded glasses have given so many people in the world a better perspective on the risks that they're facing. And that sight picture is terrifying.
It is. It is, especially when you realize that any potential risk to your life is not just obviously there's a level of mental illness there, but there's a whole lot of calm, cool premeditation, and that your death could and will be split down three ways. There's going to be people who are indifferent. There's going to be people who think it's abhorrent. There's going to be people who now are just so cheer it on. That there is a level of there's a form of martyrdom that is going to be attached not to your life but to the risk taken by your killer, and that is really unsettling for a lot of people to understand. I think that just in watching things that play out where a person loses their lives or a plot to kill somebody is uncovered, or the more we listen to these crazed lunatic animals in the streets articulating the most heinous things that they want done to people who don't agree with them, you start realizing that or even just the reaction by average people when they hear the news about a political assassination, and they actually rationalize it away. Our neighbors. You realize that, holy shit, if that happens to me, I mean, unless you're a local plumber who never had never made an opinion public about anything, and you only have local experiences, your family is going to see probably some of the worst shit published about you out there. People gleeful that you were killed, that your life was taken. You know, things that are going to be around there forever for your children and future generations to read about how people celebrated you being gone, or you getting your comeuppance because you had a thought that was unapproved. That is that is, and of course that gets even more scary. I can imagine if you're at the helm of a company that in one way or another redirects billions, if not trillions, worth of dollars around the world, and in some way, shape, or form connected to people's so-called health care. So I can imagine it's just really gut wrenching whenever you think about it. And hell, if I made all that money, I would say, Caleb, I need a team of 6, and I don't because I don't want to have to think about this as much. You know, let me ask you this, though, as we're wrapping up here. You mentioned the Super Bowl before. I'm sure that you can actually go out there and get very itemized assessments of what gets put into a Super Bowl. But let's just say someone calls you up, Roger Goodell calls you up and says, hey, you know what? The Super Bowl's coming up, and we want you, Caleb. We want white glove protection to come in and actually handle the Super Bowl this year. You got whatever you need from us. We're going to help facilitate it, but we want you to lead it. What would that cost? What would that cost?
Well, the Super Bowl is kind of tough because that is the highest level of security given to any event, you know, and that is absolutely federal government. But hundreds of millions is absolutely not a overstatement of that. It is quite expensive. Yeah, that if you look at the venue security alone, that is massive. But then you look at the personal protection details for the individuals attending. You know, you have thousands and thousands of protectees converging in the same place, and you know you're walking into it. And you're walking in next to another protection team. It really becomes about who has the best planning and the best point of contacts to be able to get, the best access, whether you get field access or box access or wherever, you're allowed to be. It is extremely expensive, and, it could be, hundreds of millions.
And then, like you said, on top of it, just all the attendees who are celebrity level, and then the players, the performers. That is such a ridiculous gathering, and the economic interests that are represented is nuts. Well, anyway, this has been incredible. I like learning a lot about this stuff. You've been a wonderful guest, and I have right here in the description of the episode, there's whitegloveprotection.com. So this is just for anybody out there who is in the future, if they may need any kind of services, or if they're putting together an event that's going to require a little bit more attention, you're the person that can show up for things big and small, huh?
Yeah. We provide services globally. We focus on embedded protection, so full-time agents, full-time teams. Most of our teams are rather large. But we're happy to help in any way. If we don't want to do it or can't do it, then we have strategic partners that can do the plethora of protection. But yeah, look up on LinkedIn, Caleb Gilbert, or LinkedIn /EP Caleb for my LinkedIn account. But whitegloveprotection.com, you can see some of the hits from ENN when I was on Anderson Cooper, and different things like that on there as well.
Fantastic. Well, like I said, the URL is in the information for this episode, and I'd love to have you back, especially since you'd be a great correspondent for any kind of developing situation out there, as we are a world that's going to need an increased amount of security as we move through whatever kind of transition, restoration, hopefully restoration of sanity. It'll be great to have you as a friend of the show, Caleb.
Absolutely. Happy to come back.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
All right. Take care.
There you go. Everybody, go check out Caleb Gilbert. That is whitegloveprotection.com. Just interesting information. I doubt very many of you are going to need to have a full detail around you, but I wanted to know how the sausage is made. And listen, I know that he's got a lot of partners and friends out there, but I don't really think that I think that anybody could have done a better job than the Secret Service. Like, we're not talking about some crazy thing. We're talking about it, especially with Butler. We're talking about an instance that is so insane how that one thing was not covered. So I have to imagine that if Caleb Gilbert was out there and he had the detail assigned to him, the job assigned to him to go and lock things down, that we wouldn't have had a very dramatic day in July of 2024. And I have to imagine, I don't know much about. I wish we can get a little bit more detail, but there's so few details available about what was going on operationally around Charlie Kirk in Utah. But perhaps somebody will write a book about it sometime. Anyway, it's 8 o'clock. When we come back from this really quick break, I have we'll take some calls from you. We'll read your super chats, and then we're going to get to this John Bolton news and also the Nancy Pelosi receipts that have come out in the, after she melted down a little bit and said, stop talking about January 6th. It wasn't my fault, even though we have her on tape and shit. Anyway, all that and more when we come back. It's the last hour of the Thursday night show. So get involved. We'll be right back.
Here on the sun-kissed shores of Cocoa Beach, where the ocean meets the horizon, the Great American Restoration Tour continues on November 6th through the 9th, 2025. Badlands Media gathers patriots like you, not just to talk, but to rebuild. From truth-telling panels to unbreakable bonds, we're restoring the soul of our nation, one conversation at a time. This is the heart of the Space Coast, where the rockets defy gravity and dreams touch the stars. Feel the thunder of innovation that powers America forward. Together, we're not just healing the past, we're blasting off into a brighter tomorrow, a future where truth prevails, families thrive, and America leads once more. Join us in Cocoa Beach. Get your seat or your virtual stream pass now at badlandsmedia.tv/events. Launch is imminent, and you don't want to miss this liftoff.
Welcome to Intermission.
All right, everybody, welcome back. All right, 803. We have a cozy little audience that's watching tonight, and thank you so much for choosing to hang out with me. So we're going to be taking some calls. I'll just lay the lines open, just if you had any thoughts from what he just said, what Caleb had said in the interview that we had him with him in the first hour. That'd be wonderful to hear from you. Let me see here. Jay Britt says, good interview, Frank. As far as your personal security goes, at least you have the comfort knowing that Matt has your back. No. Where do you see Matt? Matt has no. No, that used to be a luxury. But no. That's not something I can rely on. But thank you, Jay. especially when it comes to wild animals. Yes, that would have been the greatest line of defense for any kind of wolves or mountain lions. It would have been great. At a time, I was safe from that. Jeannie, thank you so much over there on Twitch. Almost said Tumblr because it's got that Tumblr purple. ST says, much respect, Caleb. Great guest. Bobby Lambert says, Frank, please wish a very happy birthday to my baby sister, two-part sinner. Well, happy birthday to you, two-part sinner. I hope you have a wonderful birthday. It's a good time of year to have a birthday, right here in the majesty of fall. Nick in Chicago says, good evening, Frank. I loved the Spooky Stories episode last week. I added a couple of my own to the forum that my boys have been asking me to share. Well, that's going to be great, especially on October 30th when we have the boys from Nephilim Death Squad coming on just to do Spooky Stories. And I'm going to make sure that they get the forum link so that all of the people in their audience who has Spooky Stories can put a few through, and we can just have a big super show of ghost stories. And also tomorrow night at 7 o'clock on Twitter, X, Rumble, and YouTube is going to be the rerun, the premiere of the Saturday show that we just did last week with Sherry and Dave. So many of you will have plenty to watch that you haven't seen before, and it's just it'll be good. It'll be a good time. I hope you enjoy it. It's relaxing and a lot of fun. Some more creepy stories there too. Okay, let's see. What else do we have? I don't know why this one didn't pop up in my Streamlabs, but John Volts kicked it all off on YouTube and said, "Hey Frank, I can I convince you to play the Bobby Possum Cods meth commercial from the damn show on your next intermission? Pretty please, it's on YouTube." Well, you could send me the link. I can take a look at it. And at the very least, I could maybe we can play it on Extra Innings on the flip side after the show ends. I don't know. There's a lot of things that we were getting flagged for on places like YouTube that are not even music anymore. Like, for example, you remember about a couple of months ago, we listened to that one black female progressive who took on, I don't know, like 15 black male conservatives. We were watching a little bit of that debate and just kind of commenting on all that stuff. Well, apparently every clip from that debate that we just watched, which you would think would be fair use, you're watching people in a public debate setting, and we're watching it and putting commentary of our own on top of it. All that was flagged too. I didn't notice it until today because I've just been every once in a while sweeping through the YouTube and trying to clear up all of the issues I have. I'm just trying to find ways to wake the YouTube up. We're always live. Obviously, we're starting to post more and more short and medium length stuff, but there's just something doesn't feel right, you know? And something doesn't feel right. Because we're having a good time. I think that the quality of the shows are great. Quality of the guests are great, but it just seems like visibility is bottoming out all over the place. Even on Rumble. It's just a very strange thing. Very strange thing. Sometimes you go home, you feel like you're having a good go of it. And we have wonderful audience out there because I get you guys calling. I get you guys emailing. I know that you're all enjoying the show. I know you've been around for retaining you. You're out there. It's just such a strange something's going on right now. And so when it comes to, hey, play this, play that, especially if it's been, an underground television show from the 90s or something, I'm just got to be careful with that right now because I'm trying to figure out what's happening, what's ailing the several channels, and how to improve on that. I think that we're going to have a really great 2026 though. So just trying to end with a really nice end of 2025. All right, let's see. Over on Rumble, everybody hanging out? Any Rumble rants? None. Okay, so then we're going to just take some calls. 484, you're on the air. Who is this?
Hey, Frank, it's Scott. How you doing?
Scott, it's great to have you on. What's on your mind?
Hey, listen, I don't know what your topics are tonight. It's for just open discussion. I got a question for you.
All right.
Have you been paying attention to other main conservative
You gotta kill that in the background.
Go ahead.
No, kill that and kill the stream in the background.
You got me now?
Yeah, I got you. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I don't know what your topics are.
I understand.
What are your thoughts? Are you watching any mainstream conservative like influencers on YouTube or anything like that?
No.
Does it seem to you like this whole Charlie Kirk thing? People are doing an about face and not allowing people to exercise their option, like for thoughts of what could have possibly happened.
I'm not watching really a lot of it. Thanks for the call, Scott. I don't have time to watch a lot of it. Only just because I'm always preparing for another 2-hour broadcast every night. So it really limits what I can watch. I try to absorb as many clips as possible. And the Discord has been a great resource just because I see people hanging out and talking and discussing the big news of the day and also highlighting certain things. And sometimes they'll timestamp stuff. So, I listen to, I'll see Crowder or, when you're talking mainstream, I'll see Crowder show up someplace and debate somebody on Piers Morgan or people going after Destiny for all of his opinions on that stuff. But that's mostly mainstream left versus mainstream right. As far as people inside of the so-called right, that all are a little bit more concerned and suspicious about the circumstances around something like Charlie Kirk's assassination. Oh yeah, there's plenty of variation on that, but there always is with us. There always is with us, and I've seen it happen. I've kept up as much as I could with Candace Owens. I don't watch her streams, but I see a lot of highlights. I've watched shorter videos that are posted. I get the gist there, and I also have quite a few people in my circles that are always watching it and telling me what's going on. There's that. And then you have the other side of that where there is people like Nick Fuentes who is even goes to counter Candace Owens on a bunch of stuff that usually you'd think that he'd be on for. And like I said, I just see them all in dribs and drabs on reels and shorts and stuff. So it's always like that with us. The left, they eat their own as well, but we are well known for circular firing squad mentalities on everything. And I tend not to get too deep into the weeds when it comes to start, food fighting with people about details, when I think the most important thing is we're being lied to about little things, which means that there are big things that are amiss. And are we ever going to figure it out? Are we ever going to get the truth? Do we ever? 60 some odd years after JFK? But, every other person knows exactly what happened with JFK. Every other person has 100% confidence about what happened with JFK, even though their details are different than the person next to them. But I guess what it all comes down to is it's horseshit. It's horseshit. And that's the most important thing sometimes, to just hold yourself, to grab onto, latch onto, to maintain your sanity and to give yourself permission to get on with your life sometimes, because we do a lot of holding. We do a lot of holding on to things. 973, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Joy.
Hello?
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 Hi.
Hey.
Who's this?
Okay, so let's move on to another story. We have, I think I'm just getting trolled this week. There's something going on. There's something going on. A giant knuckle needs to crack. Something. Let's see here. John Bolton You want to talk about, is anything ever going to happen? Here we go. John Bolton indicted over mishandling of classified documents. The U.S. Justice Department has charged former National Security Advisor John Bolton for his handling of classified documents, Bloomberg reports, citing a person familiar with the matter. Bolton's lawyer, Abby Lowell, said his client did nothing inappropriate with classified records. However, part of the criminal investigation into Bolton has focused on what resembles diary entries of private notes he made for himself on AOL email account, which may have contained classified information. On AOL email account, I wonder if they were in drafts, because that's a big way that people will have secret conversations without having there be a real paper trail of emails being passed from one another. Sometimes they will just open up a joint email account and they will leave an email draft for the other person to log in and see the draft, the unsent mail, and you communicate through a draft instead of actually sending it. I wonder what that was. He allegedly shared highly classified information with his wife and daughter. Oh, never mind. The FBI executed a search warrant on Bolton's Maryland home and Washington, D.C. office over the summer, during which agents seized multiple documents labeled secret, confidential, and classified, including some which mentioned weapons of mass destruction, according to court records. Of course, Glenn Greenwald jumped on to that and said, well, hey, you know what? In the past, former U.S. envoy, that's John Bolton, there he is with the broom mustache and the mop of shitty hair. You know what? I'm glad I'm bald. When I look at the hair on this guy, both on his head and on his upper lip, I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine shaving. I really am. What the hell would I do with the head of that stupid ass hair anyway? Bolton it looks like a mop from a Disney movie or something like that. You know, Disney mops are always just so like coiffed. Bolton on leaking classified information. Give him what he wants, says Glenn Greenwald, and he attaches an old headline of Bolton saying that Edward Snowden, should be hanged as a traitor for leaking classified information or sensitive information. But again, where does it go? Who's going to hear the case? What do you think? Is it a bone? Is it the biggest bone? Is it one bone? Is it a small bone that's going to lead to a big bone? Everybody says, you know, the smaller fish are bait for the big fish. We were thinking about that in the Bish. Get out of here, Bish. We had what was it? It was the Awans. Was it the Awan brothers? That whole thing? Like, yeah, man. Baiting them. Trading up all the time. We'll see, right? But here's another one for you. Now, this was a little something that happened today or yesterday, where Nancy Pelosi gets a little testy with a reporter that asked her questions about the January 6th response, security response. More specifically, the National Guard that was not called in because she demurred and said it's not going to happen. Well, she says, well, that's not the case. It was all Trump's fault. Take a listen to this.
Congresswoman Pelosi, are you at all concerned that the new January 6th committee will find you liable for that day? Are you at all concerned about the new January 6th committee finding you liable for that day? Why did you refuse the National Guard on January 6th?
Shut up. I did not refuse the National Guard. The president didn't send it. Why are you coming here with Republican talking points as if you're a serious journalist?
The American people want to know. We still have questions. Thank you.
Shut up. And of course, if you're a Democrat influencer on Twitter, I'm sure this is how you wrote your tweet. Holy shit! Nancy Pelosi just put a Republican hack journalist in their place. Blah, blah, blah. Wow. This dog still has bite. They probably said something like that. Anyway, here is Chief Stephen Sund, former Chief U.S. Capitol Police, who put a little something out there. Tagged Speaker Pelosi. Ma'am, Let me help refresh your memory. It was your Sergeant at Arms who repeatedly denied my multiple requests for National Guard assistance before and on January 6th. Even on January 6th, your Sergeant at Arms denied my urgent request for over 70 minutes while he was running it up the chain for your approval. That's a quote, he says, running it up the chain. The Pentagon offered National Guard assistance, but I had to decline because your Sergeant at Arms would not grant me the legal authority as required under federal law. And then he brought the even more receipts there of all of the requests for National Guard support that were denied, starting on January 3rd. January 3rd, 9:24 a.m., Pelosi Sergeant at Arms Irving was quoted as saying, "I don't like the optics of more National Guard presence, I guess, there in the Capitol," so it was denied. January 3rd at 11:53 a.m., Senate Sergeant at Arms Stanger concurs with Irving. January 6th, just about 1 p.m., Irving needs to run it up the chain to Pelosi. And then it just keeps going from there. We're talking about every 10 to 15 minutes starting around 1 p.m. Stanger won't override Pelosi Sergeant of Arms. Stanger, that's the Senate Sergeant at Arms, still waiting for Irving. Irving waiting for the okay from Pelosi. Irving still waiting for the okay from Pelosi. These are all accompanied by denials. Senate waiting to concur with the House. Irving says okay, coming soon from Pelosi. That's at 1:45 p.m. on January 6th. Irving stresses okay any minute now from Pelosi, denied again at 2:01. And then finally, there's authorization from Pelosi at 2:08 p.m. when, of course, they already got everything they needed for Jake Tapper to shit all over himself on television. As long as they had something for people to cry as if they just witnessed the Bay of Pigs, then okay, let's call them in now, and then give them all pins the next day. You get a challenge coin for this one. So that's where we are. That's where we are with that. Now, as far as what this new January 6th committee is going to, how far it's going to push the ball, and how many people are going to pay attention to it, since very few people paid attention to the first one, I don't know. What do you think about that? It's 8:21. And I'll reopen the line for calls, and then we will and I have other things that we can get around to for the last 20 minutes to kind of just coast into a nice weekend of God knows what. I can't wait, to be honest. I can't wait. I'm really excited for the premiere of the Saturday night show tomorrow night. I'll be watching it. I'll be there in the chat room with you guys. Maybe I won't be chatting the whole time, but I'll be there watching it, having a good time. And then there's also just going to be Saturday, taking a little bit of a day trip into Massachusetts to watch my my nephew play football. And that'll be nice. Because, I don't know, it's been a weird week. Fun, but weird. Let's try this one again. 973, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hi, Frank.
Hi.
I'd like to talk about drug discovery.
Drug discovery? Okay, I don't know what's going on there. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if you call in, remember one thing. As soon as you hear my voice on the phone, stop the stream. 301, you're on the air. You're on the air. You're actually here. Go ahead.
Awesome, Frank. Long-time listener. Very glad to talk to you.
Great to have you.
I just wanted to see if you heard anything about the bad news about Ace Frehley.
Yes, I mean, I saw the headline. I don't know anything about the actual details. Do you know something?
Just a little bit. They said he had a fall and I'm not sure if it was a brain contusion or something like that. But
damn, it's like that.
Something like that happened.
Oh, that sucks.
That's I mean, he was one of our heroes growing up, and Wild Kiss and all the rest of them, and it's just a shame to see it happen.
No, you know what? That really, that really does suck. When I hear about that, we could be talking about blunt force trauma here, and it's just something like that. Oh God, man. Well, Well, what else is there to say? I mean, I'll keep an eye out for anything that's published, but thank you for bringing that in. Did you ever see Kiss live?
Oh, about so many times, at least a dozen, maybe more.
Yeah.
They were unbelievable. Absolutely. I just figured, New York, that's just right up your alley. So that's why I just want to see if you heard about it.
Ace Frehley and Dimebag Darrell are now reunited in heaven. That's
yes.
You got Ace Frehley, Dimebag Darrell, and Eddie Van Halen all hanging out right now. And can you imagine the sound check?
Could you imagine that?
Oh my gosh, the sound check that's going on right now up there is incredible.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right, Frank. You have a wonderful evening, sir, and we'll keep watching. And thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you, sir. It's great to hear from you. Really is. 641. You're on the air. Go ahead. I was hoping for 2 in a row. I was hoping for 2 in a row. That would have been great if we had 2 in a row. But yeah. Okay. Let's see. Everybody, Gene Simmons. The other hand, let me see. Gene Simmons actually just had a fall. Didn't he have a fall or something like that? 641. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Hello, Frank.
Hey. Who's this?
This is Deb.
Deb, welcome to the show.
I just want to encourage you, buddy, because I think you've really sounds like you're feeling pretty down.
It's just one of those weeks, Deb. They can't all be grand slams, but I'm grateful. As they say, Deb, when I go home tonight, I will try to remind myself of that very nice line of wisdom. That very wise line of thought that I've heard uttered many times in your life when it comes to your health and all the problems that you feel like you have in your life, that when you're healthy and you're strong, you have 10,000 problems, and when you're sick, you only have one problem. And that's the only, and your entire world comes from this very wide focus, and you have almost like your pick of what stresses you out. And then when you're not feeling well and you're dealing with that, there really is only one thing, and it's you got to be grateful for the little problems. And weeks like this make me think about that a lot.
Well, that's really interesting because faith grows by all those little pricks and picks that go in your life, because that's the way God works. He builds your faith when He tests you, and when your faith grows, it's good for everybody. So, right?
Indeed. No, you're speaking truth right there. But thank you for wanting to comfort me. Is there anything else you want to say, my friend?
Well, yes, because I've been listening to you for a good number of years. I mean, I'm guessing 10 years, and I apologize for not being able to support your great podcast. It's one of the best of best, but you are so funny. I remember listening to you early on when you were making all those jokes and all those mimicings of Nancy Pelosi and all. I mean, you were the best. And the reason I started listening to you was one of the SGT 22 had you on, and I heard you, and I thought, well, I'm going to listen to him for a while. And you reminded me of my sons. You're a musician, and I think I've told you this maybe before, but maybe not. I don't know. Either way, I have 2 sons, and one is a musician, and one is just really the funniest guy ever. And you kind of just made them both in you. So I thought, I'm going to listen to this guy, and you're so smart, and you're so articulate. And it took my husband a long while to get on board with you. And so I just want to encourage you, dear,
well,
that you're
thank you.
You're just really good at what you do. And don't give up. It is always, God tests us. That's the way it always is. That we've all been tested here pretty, the last few, I don't know, since 2020, basically.
Yes.
And I could tell you a lot of stuff about what happened in 2020 that God showed me, but I can't begin to tell you all of that right now. But
well, there'll be more time. Hey, let me ask you before you leave. What was it? What was your husband's main criticism before he finally came around to me? Was it? I was just.
You were just too darn cute.
Oh, he was jealous of me?
Maybe.
No, or was it just that I was just a pompous ass from New York?
Oh no! Oh heavens, no!
Okay.
No, not at all.
Okay. Well,
no,
that's.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, that's. Well, I'm happy that I was able to.
You're not. Do you think you are a pompous ass?
No, but I just know that the perception that people have of New Yorkers, if you're not from around here.
No. No, my dad would have thought that. My dad was a truck driver, and he drove to New York on a weekly basis, and he had a lot of. If I could tell you all the things that my dad thought about New Yorkers, well, you'd probably have to bleep me a bit, because he knew how the New Yorkers were.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'd probably agree with your dad on most of them, but thank you for the call. And I hope I hear from you again soon. And you know what? This is the kind of support that is invaluable. So thank you for just, sending me the good energy. And I know that on a week like this, everybody feels like they're, Frank, I just wanted to call you up, and I know it was really just a strange week for calls, mostly. I think that we had great topics. Last night Jim Lee couldn't come on the show. I think that we do well. Sometimes some of our best shows are the ones when I have the rug pulled out from under me not too long before the show goes live, and I just have to be comfortable in telling the audience I ain't got shit, and you got to call in, and you need to be sober. And here we go. 785, you're on the air. What do you got for me?
It's Molly Hardy.
Oh, Molly, what is this that I hear last night that you have to sometimes use Chat GPT to have a pleasant response to people drafted for you and emailed? You really have a temper? You seem like you're just such a lovely little nugget.
Well, sometimes people expect magic and a blink, and I can't do that.
Okay.
Because I'm not magical, and so that's just sometimes it gets under my skin. I'm like, are you kidding me? You want that tomorrow? That's not going to happen.
Yeah. No, I get you.
But, yeah. So then it happens in the printing business.
So ChatGPT is essentially every once in a while like your publicist, a cool-headed publicist that can think a little bit more clearly for you when you just need some time to cool off.
Yes.
Okay.
And then it makes my day better because I have solved that problem and I don't have to dwell on it anymore.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's just my question. Now, your thought. Go ahead.
Well, Bolton's hair is fake.
You think the hair on his head is fake?
Oh, yeah. I don't know what's under his, I don't know if that's a rat underneath his nose, but yeah, his hair looks like a wig.
Let me see. John Bolton wig. John Bolton wearing a clown wig. No, that's it. I have to look at this a little bit more. I really do think that, I don't know if this is a wig. I don't know.
Then he gets it fluffed out like Nancy Pelosi does.
Well, you know what?
COVID.
This is from 2016. I will not be shaving my mustache, he says. I think this is around the time that I heard that he was being considered for Secretary of State. We were so happy that he was not, even though he made his way in there anyway and still tried to start a couple of wars. But I don't know. I don't think that you can say a lot of things about John Bolton. I think that he is the hair is just him, and it actually kind of fits him because it sucks. So.
Yes. Well, and that's why I think it's fake.
Okay. Well, there you go. Well, thank you, Molly. Thank you.
And I just had to put some levity in there.
Yes. No.
I need to hear about Ace Frehley, so I had to put some levity in.
Yeah, I know it sucks. It really does. But and when I just heard a little bit more information about it, it didn't make it any better, obviously. Oh, I don't know. We'll see what the hell happens with that. A fall. That's the last thing you want to hear. I'm going to start wrapping my parents in fucking bubble wrap. Telling you. Going to start wrapping them all in bubble wrap. Nobody works out, by the way. Nobody's done a squat. I don't know anybody in my life that's done a squat in the last 12 years. Son of a bitch. Everybody's getting bubble wrapped. Team Smooth says, thanks, Frank. Interesting indeed. Team Smooth is over there on the Badlands Rumble. It's great to have somebody on Badlands. You know, we have a nice little crowd over there on Badlands, more than the Quite Frankly Rumble. When Rumble, everybody started moving over to Rumble, we would sometimes have nearly 2,000 people there a night. Just there. And I always said there's something weird about these numbers. They can't be real. And they all across the board, they've come down to earth. It says, I don't know what the hell's going on. Jay Semo says, happy Thursday, Frank. Thank you, Jay. It's wonderful to hear from you. 850, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to call in and encourage you because I have been listening to you for about 10 years now, and my two daughters were both born right around the same time Aurora was. And that was right when I started listening to you. And, you know, you really just, I don't know, I synergized with you, man. And I felt like you were just one of my homeboys. And every night I called, listened to the show. I just felt like I was hanging out with the boys, man. And, you know, I feel like a piece of shit because I haven't subscribed to the show. But I tell you, when I get back tonight, man, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to spread the love around because you've just been a great part of my life and my wife's life. And we've loved seeing Aurora grow up. And at the same time, our girls are the same age. And, you know, we just love you, man. And, you know, we're going to do our best to spread the love around for you. And, you know, whether YouTube's fucking with you or whatever it is, man, we're going to do our best as fans to spread the love around and get more people to listen to you, man. Because once you listen to a couple of your shows, you're hooked, man. And you just have such great intellect. You cover so many different topics in the book club. And, you know, you've inspired me to read more. I gave up reading for a long time. And, you know, you just inspired me to do a lot, man, with all your shows. And you've gotten me through some rough times just by listening to your reasoning. And I just want to call and thank you for that, man.
I can't thank you enough either. And honestly, one of the reasons why when we hit our goals in the future and we really bring this to a more fuller expression of what the show is going to be is, I think, and is just still kind of just germinating and blooming. It just takes time to do this stuff. But I think that some of the best things are going to be being able to do shows and events and go around to different parts of the country and see different places and be able to, you know, get it out there. Say, hey, we're going to be here on July 17th or whatever the hell it is, or August 3rd, and have people like you come out and to see our daughters play together. That'll be fun. You know,
I will be at the next Jubilee just because of that. So
yeah, well, I appreciate you, sir, and thank you, and be in touch. Even if you can't call in, I always say email the show. No matter how much time has gone by, I always make time to try to get into that inbox myself and get responses to as many people as possible because it's important. But thank you, and thanks for everything.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And once again, my name's Jonathan. I'm from Destin, Florida, in the Panhandle, and a lot of people call me Cap because I'm a captain down here. So if you hear Cap call in, that's me.
All right, Cap. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
There you go. Well, Florida is definitely going to be one of those places we got to go to. We got so many people that hang out in Florida that watch the show, and this show has always been about hanging out, and we're going to continue to hang out. It's not going away. Never going to give up. Don't worry, everybody. And you know, I'm not accusing suppression. I just know that I know that the landscape changes, and there are always unseen changes that you got to work with. And You know, for a small operation, you have to be able to pivot a lot. And also share the show with a friend. That's a great way. You know, people are able to support, quite frankly, at varying levels. And for a lot of you out there, just being able to like the episode, share it, or leave a comment. Liking and leaving a comment is huge. It's huge. Seriously, it's so big. No matter where you're watching it, if it's on Rumble or YouTube, wherever it is, if there is a like button and there's a place to comment when the show is off air after the fact, it's big. It takes a couple of clicks, no money, and there you go. And for those of you who are complaining about the ads that you see now on YouTube, if you always wanted to support the show but you can't subscribe, watch an ad. I don't know how much that costs. What does that earn us? 10 cents? I don't know what that even does. I'm only accepting the monetization on places like YouTube because I want to see how much it opens us up to be suggested to new people. But I think that's really going to come down to when we double, triple, and quadruple our output in the Reels department and all that shit, which is coming. I will go broke on video editing. And trust me, I'm going broke on video editing. All right, let's see. Take another call. Actually, no, let's go on a really quick break because it's a Badlands night, and I want to make sure that they are properly thanked for all the wonderful things, the opportunity that they have given us here on Badlands on Thursday night. So here we go. A break. Rattlesnake. We've been trained to buy cheap, fast, and processed, but cheap comes at a cost. Your health, the land, the animals at Rattlesnake, they take no shortcuts, no subsidies, no premium pasture-raised, no, just premium pasture-raised beef and chicken. What about Minotaur? Do they have Minotaur beef? Minotaur meat? We all want that. You know, if you know, you know. That real, honest, worth it. Think differently. Eat better. Bite back at Big Ag. Grab your pasture-raised meat now. Order at rattlesnakemeats.com/Badlands. Promo code Badlands. Meat of the rattlesnake variety. You know, and if you watched on the flip side last night, then you know. By the way, I really don't think I'm going to be able to read this erotica thing. It's 50 Shades of Grey was one thing, guys, in the Discord that found this. AK that found this. Reading a passage from 50 Shades of Grey is one thing. It's cheesy, awful, laugh riot, but this Minotaur thing is fucking. I don't think I'm going to be able to read more than a couple of sentences. I'm definitely not reading this whole page. It is awful. Just awful. Falafel. It's falafel. All right, 507, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Thank you, Frank. Evening.
Yeah, you got it. Go ahead. So what else do you want to say?
I was just going to talk to you about the whole conversation that you had the other night about stealing something and then giving it back.
Yes. Well, if you gave it back, that's a bonus. So I wanted to know what the most expensive thing you've ever stolen was.
Well, it was a grain truck.
A what truck? A grain truck?
Yeah, it was a grain truck.
So like wheat? Like if you're going to make bread, it was going to a bakery, grain, that kind of grains, or rice? What?
Well, around here it's corn and soybeans.
And what was the reason for it? Did you want to go sell it on the black market for grains, or were you just drunk and you wanted to do something crazy? Like, what was it?
No, we were riding home in my friend's car, and it died on the interstate. And it died right by the off exit, so we took the off ramp, and we were less than half a mile away from the town that I grew up in. And we tried to do it right. And my friend and I were on our way back to the car that died. And we walked by this row of grain trucks. And I was like, I bet one of those has the keys above the visor.
In the visor.
Yeah.
Like most U-Hauls. Every time I've ever rented a U-Haul for any kind of special event, they're like, all right, you're number 64 out back. And you go into this big lot with a wide open gate, and almost always the key is in the visor.
Yeah, and the door's unlocked, and there was 6 or 7 of us in this car, and it's a grain truck, so it doesn't have a back seat.
Okay, so you tried to hitchhike, but that didn't work. So you stole a grain truck to go a half mile down the road to get gas, and you brought it back.
There was no gas, there was no hitchhiking. We hopped in the grain truck, fired it up, drove out to the car that was dead, picked up the 4 or 5 friends of ours that were waiting for us, and can only fit so many people on a bench seat, you know.
Yep. Okay.
So here I am. I'm like, okay, we're going to take this to the next town where we actually wanted to go, which was only 8 miles away. And I ended up hanging out the outside, hanging off the mirror, only going about 50 miles an hour. But let me tell you, going down the highway at 50 miles an hour, hanging out the outside of the truck, that's a death wish.
You're pretty nuts. So let's get to the conclusion here, because I only have 15 minutes left of the show. You get to your destination, you take this, you're on the highway, you have a whole bunch. This grain truck is at capacity with how many human beings it could transport, where you're hanging on the outside of it. You get to the destination, then what? What do you do with this truck that you just stole, and how does your night end? Go ahead, quick.
Okay, so we ended up dropping everybody off at the house, and the place that we stole it from was an elevator, who owned the elevator that we were going to in the town next door. And I said, we're going to have to drop this off. We're not keeping it. We're not going to do anything like that. Let's just park it in the gravel parking lot, keep the keys above the visor, and let them do what they may. And nothing ever came of it. Never was in the paper.
Wow.
It was.
You were like,
I don't know if that beats a karaoke system or not, but
yeah, this is a little bit more interesting. I mean, the karaoke system is what it is. Somebody, that caller just stole a karaoke machine and then tried to pawn it off. But you just needed a ride. And how long ago again was this?
This was probably 20.
Okay,
over 20 years
so you're
ago.
safe. You're safe. You can write about this all as much as you want. You're safe at this point. Wow. Well, thank you for this. I really appreciate. And what state was this in, by the way?
Minnesota.
Okay. And what's your social security number?
Yeah, no, you can get that now.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the call, sir. That's grain truck in Minnesota. 20 years ago, though. Hey, listen, he had 8 miles to go. What are you going to do? Let's see here. That's all I got for you. That's all I got for you on that one. Okay, Mima Hunter says challenge accepted by Poso for Hope. Says Badlands Frankly challenge. What's the Badlands Frankly challenge? Oh, you're talking about Rumble rants? Let's see. Over on quitefrankly.tv, powered by pilled.net. And I just want to give a big tip of the cap to Matt at Pilled, because over the reshaping of social media and all of the streaming platforms we've been on, I think that Pilled is still fantastic in so many ways, because it continues to evolve. It listens to the users. It is always improving and adding things, and thank God for small little websites like that are continuing to grow, and they're just being solidified in their role played in all this stuff, because you just don't know. YouTube versus Rumble, where is it all going to go? I don't know. But I'm just happy that on quitefrankly.tv, there's pilled.net. NX17 says, quite frankly, always the best. Thank you. Nathan says, let's see, work had me tied up the last couple of nights and really wanted to have a good laugh with you and how absolutely hilariously uncomfortable the open line calls were on Tuesday. That is all. Yeah, well, it didn't stop there, but it has gotten better. Stuck in NY. Thank you, Stucky. It's good to have you out there, friend. Awake Not Woke. And Warrior Biatch says, absolutely adore you and your family, Frank. Thank you for everything you've done and are doing. And thank you, Warrior. Good to have you there. And Captain Flint with a pair of shades. Appreciate you. Appreciate you very, very much. Joe Martinez, thank you. Dan Schumann says, have a cigar. You got it. AK says, I think we all need to release some steam with that steamy reading in the monster voice. Okay. I might be able to read at least a couple of sentences more than I think I'd be able to get through if I can do it in the monster voice. Because it's very uncomfortable how graphic it is. And it's a minotaur. The hell is going on? What's wrong here? The fact that there are women out there that are going nuts for this. I didn't know about this until it was brought to my attention last night. Let's see here. Schizo Friend says, Nephilim Death Squad date assaulted me in high school. Are you serious? They sexually assaulted you in high school? Nephilim Death Squad, both of them? You went to high school up here? Schizo Friend also says, strike the last super chat from the record. It was actually Misfit Patriot. I get him and David confused. Oh, I'm sorry. See, I just slandered and libeled people now because of you, Schizo Friend. Now I'm going to be sued by a number of parties. All right. Anyway, let's see here. One last call over here. 920, you're on the air. What do you got for me?
Hey, Frank. This is your old pal, Aaron.
Aaron, what's going on?
I got Truth Quest. I got my YouTube channel back.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me see. Truth Quest with Aaron Moriarty. Let's see. Truth Quest, Aaron Moriarty. When did you lose it again?
A couple years ago. 3 years ago, maybe.
Well, it's not popping up for me right now. You got to send me the link.
Okay, I'll send you a link. But the reason I called is I've never stolen anything, but I did end up with momentarily a purse and a wallet that wasn't mine. The first time I was with some friends, we were driving through Mound, Minnesota, where I grew up, and there was a purse in the middle of the road. And I was with some friends, and we picked it up off the road, and one of the guys dug in it, and he said, hey, we got $60. Let's get a keg. And I looked at the other part of the purse, and it had the ID. I said, this is Jeannie Nelson. We went to school with her. We have to give it back. And it took like an hour to convince this other guy to give it back to this woman. She was so happy. She needed that money. And she had her purse on the top of the car. So it was a good deed.
That's good.
Second time, I was at this very small Super America gas station on the corner, downtown Mound. And corner station, very small. And I was in the bathroom, and on the floor was a brand new wallet with the only thing in it was $108. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to bring this in and hand it in to the guy at the desk, and someone's going to be coming back for this. And I looked at the guy. I knew him from high school, and I knew he would just take the money, and he wouldn't do anything. So I just loitered. I read magazines for a couple hours until he kicked me out. And I felt very bad, but I thought, you know what? I'm really broke right now, and maybe this is God's way of helping me out. And I felt a little bit guilty, but there really was no ID, and it was a brand new wallet.
Well, Aaron, and thanks for the call. And send me that link in email or something, because I can't find your channel right now. But I'm so happy you got reinstated. Let me just bring my thoughts to the other side of this call. I think you were okay in taking that money, and I'll tell you why. Because you tried to protect it in a number of ways that actually was pretty laborious. Number one, you understood that the character of the person that you would turn this money into was not going to yield any kind of justice or any kind of lost and found moment for a person who might be looking all over for this wallet. So what'd you do? You stuck around. You stuck around for a couple of hours. I have to imagine you did that in hopes that somebody would come back looking for it and you can say, I believe this is yours. But you know what? You put a couple hours into that and somebody has not retraced their steps with their brand new wallet and the $108 that was inside of it. Then I think that by the time closing time hits and you are ushered out of there, if there's no contact information in the inside of that, I think that you earned it. I think you did. You worked for about $40 an hour, and that it was security detail. You were trying to secure the wallet for its owner. So don't worry about it. I'm telling you, you don't have to worry. That's what I'm telling you. I have a couple of stories over here that I'm just going to save till next week. I think Rich Barris is actually going to come on the show with me on Monday. Because I wanted him, a few people had said, hey, Frank, you know what? You should ask Rich to come on to really put into perspective what's about to happen in New York and New Jersey and all of these elections that are going to be rolling in. We're going to be assessing in November. So I think that Rich is going to be on Monday, the 20th. Then we have Jay Gulanello coming in Monday, Tuesday the 21st. We have so many great guests coming on. We're booking into December right now. I have people booked until, let me see. I'll give you a little something right now to chew on, since we're not going to talk until Monday. That is, of course, unless I get bored on late Saturday night and we do some kind of a call-in show, because I got everything set up over there at Studio B, and why not? So here's what we got coming up. Chanel from Signals is going to be on with Jay Gulanello on Tuesday. That's going to be fun. I got some sciencey things to talk about with Chanel, and she'll just be on for the first half for a little bit. And then I think that we're going to start doing this, that Jay is going to be coming on for 2 shows a month. And one of those shows is going to have a third hour. The third hour, of course, going to be on the flip side on pilled.net. It's just that what we will take to 9:30, we'll just go till 10 instead, because we just always run out of time. So there's going to be a third. That's another special thing that we're going to be doing on the website on pilled.net as well. Leo Zagami's coming back on next week. We'll talk creepy Vatican stuff right there. Will Brown, Incredible History. It's been a couple of years since Will Brown has been on. We'll talk about giants and the desert and all that stuff. I think he's going to be at Michael Collins's event in Scottsdale. Then on October 24th, listen to this. Next Friday, when Anthony and I do episode 2 of The Playhouse at 7 o'clock on the Playhouse channel we set up on YouTube, we got ourselves, you remember I played that video for you last night of the lead singer of Garbage talking about how touring has changed and how the music industry is just so way off base with all the, how it's really hurting lifers, people who want to do music for a living. It's making it harder and harder for people to be musicians. Well, I said, Anthony, you have to have somebody that you can bring on that we can talk to that's a tour manager. We're bringing on Anthony's friend, Tank the Tech. Okay, he's a tour manager for Electric Callboy. It's this popular band out of Germany. So he's a tour manager for Electric Callboy, knows Anthony well, and he's also a YouTuber. And we're going to be talking about the ins and outs of what it actually costs to put on a tour these days, how things are changing, why it's hard for even well-known acts to go on the road and actually have a profitable tour. Whether or not audiences are coming. It's that hour is going to fly by. I can't wait for that. And then we're going to have another Saturday Night Special next week. Listen to this one. On October 27th, that is 2 Mondays from now, Lubomir Arzov. You remember him from In Shadow and The Kingdom? Those awesome cartoons talking about, the shadow work and rescuing their inner self and how the world is completely controlled and the way that it's all, very, I don't know. I just love the way that the illustrations that he does. You got to go check it out. I'll share those links again. He's coming back on because he has a short film coming out called The Forest King. And that's premiering on October 24th. So he's going to come on October 27th to talk about The Forest King. I'm going to play it all. I don't know if maybe we might be able to actually premiere the whole thing. I don't know how long it is. If it's longer than like 5 minutes, I'll premiere it. I'll see if I can get the permission to premiere it after the show on the flip side so we can all watch it together as a viewing party. But The Forest King looks awesome. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go search In Shadow or The Kingdom. And it's really incredible stuff. He'll be coming on there too. But we got Christopher Knowles coming back on. Nephilim Death Squad. I might be doing I still don't know. I might be doing a Halloween stream on location at my father's Christmas Halloween party. By the way, my father told me, I know it's 9:00. We got to get off right now. My father told me and Anthony yesterday or this morning in a text message that the sequel to that movie Spookies that he was in, if you guys ever seen the horror film Spookies, we played a little bit of it on the show with Sherry and Dave on Saturday. We've watched it on the show before, ripped it up with my father in studio. There is a sequel to Spookies that seems to be moving forward. He has more information on it. I said, are you being brought back? You have to be brought back as a zombie. There's got to be a traditional zombie chase at the end of that movie. So I'll have some information on that for you. But there's more than that. The Timothy Alberino's coming back. Gigi Young is coming on. John David Oates with reverse speech. Dr. Chris Cormier, you're going to love this guy. Michael Button, who was just on Rogan not too long ago. I'm going to be pre-recording that because he lives in the UK. November is almost completely booked. I can talk for another 10 minutes about all of the guests that I have coming on. You're going to love these stories. So in the meantime, share the show, like the show, comment, become a sponsor of the show, whatever the hell is in your wheelhouse. Show us some support because so much work is being done, and I can't wait to finish out this year strong with you. And we're going to make some memories, my friends. Yes, we are. God willing. God willing. If God wants, as Tony Black would say. That's all for tonight, everybody. Let me make sure I don't miss any of the super chats out there. Dragonfly Sister says, sorry, posted too soon. I meant to rant. That's over on the Badlands. Thank you. And I have some more pilled messages coming in, but I'll read those on the other side. Two Dogs Mike D says, I found $1 while walking my dog yesterday morning. But I put it back today, right where I found it, because yesterday was weird and effed up things were happening. Today was much better. That's something. The dollar, you know? I have my lucky dollar on me all the time. All the time. It's right here. The dollar I got from Derek. I don't know if there's ever going to be a reason why I would need to spend this dollar. It's really $1 million, as you can see. One day I'm going to have to like laminate it because one day I'm going to unfurl it and it's going to just fall apart, flake apart. Anyway, that's all. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. The link will be in the chat room. So go and click through. You're going to see it. Click through and hang out with us for a few minutes until the lights go off. All right, everybody. Thank you for everything. Have a good one. Thanks again to everybody at Badlands. It's been a wonderful evening. Good night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Yes. Quite Frankly is filmed before a live studio audience. And now the Super Chatters. Two Dogs Mike D, Joe Martinez, Dan Schumann, AK, Schizo Friend, Genie Yankee Fan, Jay Brits, Genie again over there on Twitch. I love that Twitch is back. I really do. I really am. I really are. ST, Bobby Lambert, Nick in Chicago. You guys have been fantastic. Thank you to all the Rumble Ranters and the Gold Pillars. We're going to get around to you in just a moment. Until then, get over to quitefrankly.tv or pilled.net. Link is coming your way. All right, that's it. Thanks, everybody.